Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Play On podcast. This is the hurling edition, where we will take a look at the hurling results from last weekend and preview the hurling fixtures for next weekend. I have Luke here with me again. Luke, how's it going?
All good, all good.
Okay, we'll jump right into it with Limerick versus Galway. And I'm going to start by giving the two of us a whole lot of credit. We called that Galway would end Limerick's unbeaten run if Limerick came into it the same way they did against Tipperary. They weren't great, and Galway beat them 26 points to a goal and 17. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I think the reaction kind of like that has followed online, whether that be kind of or amongst pundits and everyone, it was a strange kind of game, and that it was very stop-start, an awful lot of frees, and I think a lot of people were kind of frustrated by it, and nearly a bit in the end. I think, like Evan Nyland was man of the match. He hit 14 frees, kind of, and I think it just kind of summed up how the game kind of went. It was just, yeah, there was something kind of missing in it, and then I just suppose there's an awful lot of narrative was kind of arisen out of it, like too, afterwards in the comments afterwards.
Yeah, I seen that John Kiley's comments, of course, after the match. One thing I noticed as well was in the previous week on League Sunday, Donald Cusack basically stated his position. He said that there's no way that hurling players would do that. But then fast forward a week and you have John Kiley's comments. You have Jackie Tyrrell saying that he's worried about which way hurling is going to go. And I think I'm on the side of Jackie Tyrrell and John Kiley. I think that there's an element that nobody wants it in the game, but nobody wants to be the team that gets done over by the fact that they won't do it. It's the same thing as the cynical tackles almost. Nobody likes it. Cynicism is in the game, but you don't want to be that team that's too nice to not cynically foul someone to prevent him scoring a goal.
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of talk kind of on Limerick's, their physicality and the way that, like, particularly the half forward line, how they defend and how they tackle. And there's been a lot of narrative kind of surrounding that Limerick get away with stuff and that they're not having frees called against them. And I don't know if that maybe played into it, because there was an awful lot, like everything was called against Limerick at the weekend, and that, I don't know if the refs maybe during the league are trying to clamp down on them a little bit harder. And that's why you're seeing these spectacles where kind of teams, where the games are characterized by these high free counts and games are being decided by them. I don't know. Sometimes this happens a lot in the league, and that later on in the year, once it gets to the championship, the games let flow a little bit more. But I know it did frustrate an awful lot of people this weekend.
Well, I know that last year that narrative was building up, particularly against Gearóid Hegarty, that he could get away with doing anything. But yeah, I agree that it was very stop-start. There were a lot of frees being given. I do think maybe they are trying to clamp down and say, look, you're not getting away with it this year. I think, myself included, the fans wouldn't be happy if this is how the championship is going to look. We want the games to flow. We want the games to be entertaining end to end. We don't want to see shootouts between free takers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think you look at, I always say that the 2018 season where you had that weekend where the two semi-finals were on between Clare, Galway, and then Limerick, Cork the next day, was the best weekend of hurling that there's ever been, really. Yeah. And I just don't understand why that there's been so much has been messed with since then, and you've all these rules coming in that I don't know, that I don't know if it's the pressure being put on the GA from journalists looking for change or stuff, but I just think the game didn't need to be messed with, and that you're coming in here now with, it's just, yeah, like you were saying, the weekend was nearly just a free taking competition. And so it's just disappointing between the two top teams in the country, and then it just didn't really live up to what people were hoping.
Yeah, I would agree with you up until the point about the cynical fouling. I do think that something had to be done about the cynical fouling to prevent an obvious goal scoring opportunity, because I think in last year's Leinster final, the example they talked about on the football show, the one where Niall Burke caught the ball over Hugh Lawler, was straight through on goal, and Hugh Lawler just blatantly held on to his hurl. So no, you're not scoring a goal, and I will foul you and I will take the yellow card, because that's what the game allows me to do. It's very similar to what Sean Kavanagh did on Conor McManus back in 2013, which caused Joe Brolly to go mad. It's playing within the rules, but it looks so wrong. I think something had to be done. I think this may not be the right thing to do, but I do think a penalty should be given if it's such an obvious goal scoring opportunity.
Yep. I would agree with that to an extent as well. But I wonder if the double jeopardy of the sin bin and the penalty is too extreme in hurling. Maybe hurling Gaelic is completely different. With 14 men in Gaelic in the football is completely different to 14 men in the hurling. And I don't know, we'll have to see how it kind of progresses as the league goes on. But as well, I think, having said all this as well, it's important to give credit to how Galway played at the weekend. I think it showed that they're the only team that can physically match Limerick. And I think, that's definitely, it's going to be huge for their confidence that they know that they can beat them.
Yeah. Massive moment for Galway, the return of their talisman and the face of Galway hurling since he broke onto the team as a minor back in 2008. Joe Canning came back on after his horrific injury last year. He came on in midfield.
Yep. Yeah. I think it was he had a huge kind of half when he came back on. Anyway, he hit the long range free, and he had this point on his left hand side as well and stuff. I thought he looked very sharp coming back in. I thought the interesting part was that when he came back in, Evan Ireland did predominantly stay on the close in frees. So I think they are building a role for Evan Ireland in that centre half forward position, and they are hoping for this season that he will nail down a spot. And then maybe that's an explanation for why they were looking at Canning in midfield.
Yeah,
so I think,
agree with that.
Plenty of options there for Shane O'Neill going forward.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Nyland is the successor to Joe Canning. And I think...
Yeah, and he's so reliable on those frees. Yeah.
The moment where Canning went off injured, I've talked about this, the moment where Canning went off injured in the semi-final and Nyland came in for him and hit the free over the bar immediately, that was a real moment of almost like the changing of the guard for Galway. But if they can get a couple of years with these two unbelievable hurlers playing together, they could win. They could win the All-Ireland.
Yep, absolutely. I think that result will definitely stand to them as the year goes on. I think as well, though, for Limerick, interesting to see Cathal O'Neill and Brian O'Grady kind of get debuts. Starting debuts, I suppose, but I don't think many were expecting them in the team. It didn't really work out for them. Both were taken off at half time. But these are two fellas that they'll be keen to blood. So, it's another few promising players coming through for Limerick.
Yeah, there could be an element of that they brought in a few fresh faces again as almost like a shadow box with Galway. They don't want to show, maybe they'll have another Kyle Hayes to wing back trick up their sleeve. And no one saw that one coming last year. And they might have another trick for us this year.
Yeah.
Moving on, as for Tipperary against Cork, this game we marked down as being one of the most exciting games of the weekend. Finished in a draw. Tipperary 22 points, Cork 2 goals and 16 points. Very exciting finish to the game. Both sides showed a lot of rustiness though, lots of wides. Yeah,
I think Tipperary in particular, there was huge amount of wides. Some of the shot selection was really, really poor. It was, but for the last couple of minutes, I think it really kind of took off for the last few minutes, and then I suppose Cork were kind of clinging on in the end, and it was a good lively finish. But I think it would nearly make you forget about what had kind of followed it beforehand, with Tip taking Tip in particular, I suppose, just taking pot shots from all sorts of places, and they were very inefficient, I thought. I thought they could have made an awful lot more of the amount of ball that they did have.
I do find it interesting, particularly in the game, that I was very interested to see how Cork's style would come in against Tipperary. This quick touch, quick passing, short passing a lot of the time, a lot of build-up play. I'm very interested to see, will it work? They've obviously got Donald O'Grady, and his ideas will be definitely taken into account by Kieran Kingston. I'm just fascinated to see throughout this year, will it work as they wanted to, particularly when they play against Limerick in the first round?
Yeah, that is the big question. I think you saw there at the weekend, it was Patrick Collins was quite happy to kind of tap out to the cornerbacks, and then they would try and build from there. And they were quite happy to kind of play lateral kind of short passes, and then very, very patiently get out. And I know it's probably they were so patient, and they were kind of weren't as used to it, that a few times they were kind of caught for over carrying, which Jason Ford often punished. But yeah, so I think I don't know. I think it frustrated a lot of kind of fans at home. Didn't really like it. They like to see the more traditional kind of long style. But it does make sense. Tipper sitting back on the puck outs and stuff like that, and conceding it to a point. Like, do you want to just hit it long into a place where you know you're outnumbered? So I think the more Cork play it, they will get better at it. But it's just a matter of kind of it just seems very optimistic for them to be able to be ready for the first week of championship against Limerick, to be able to play through them.
Yeah, but I'm very excited to see what these teams will bring to the table. But while we're on the game, we can't move on without talking about Jason Ford's point to level the game. What a free. Yeah. He is one of the most reliable free takers in the country right now. And to hit that free to level the game, magnificent. So far out, held his nerve and leveled the teams.
Yeah, I thought it was an incredible strike of the ball there at the end. Really, really dramatic finish to it. It's just, I suppose it was kind of funny to watch that, like a free pretty much on his own 45. It just seemed so far out. And this is kind of, there's the wider debate kind of going on at the moment. Like, should players be able to score from this far out? So I think it's these kind of points are going to kind of encourage future debates on whether the sliotar is too light, kind of, and like, is this the kind of the scores that we really want to be seeing consistently of players taking shots from 100 yards out? I know it was fantastic drama at the end with Jason Ford with the equaliser, but do we really want to see a game where where players in the half back line are consistently taking long range shots?
Personally, I do, to be honest, because I think that's one of the problems that Gaelic football had, was that there was a distance where particularly defensive teams like Donegal and Tyrone and Armagh, and they realised you can't score from outside this area, so we're going to park the bus here. I think as long as players are pretty much able to score from anywhere in hurling can't be a defensive game.
Yeah.
I think if they managed to make the ball a bit heavier or something so that players had to get in close, I think eventually you would get a not so talented team.
Yep.
Grinding the more talented teams down into a real defensive game. So I think the fact that players can score from anywhere keeps the game open, so that when teams come up, like teams like Laois and Carlow and Antrim, they have to play hurling. They can't play defensive, let's sit back, or, players like Dermot Burns are just going to take it to the cleaners.
Yep, that's a fair point. I think it's another kind of issue maybe with the long range frees is kind of, you see maybe sometimes Patrick Horgan would be like, there'd be a free in his own half, and then Patrick Horgan kind of stroll out and take it, and then before you know, it's well over a minute of a game kind of gone, and it's just two stop start in a way. I don't know if there's like, I don't want to mess with the rules too much, but if like, I don't know if there's any way that these things can be sped up, and that to ensure that the ball's in play more often instead of your free taker coming out to take shots from 100 yards.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree that it can be two stop start when the free taker has to come all the way back out to take it. But my solution to this would be the way that Limerick have their way, that Dermot Burns takes the frees from far out and Aaron Gallan takes the ones from close in. I would make that a rule. I would say every team, if it's inside your own half, someone from the defence or the midfield has to take the free. If it's from the forwards, someone from your forwards has to take the free. Personally, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Moving on then, probably the most The game with the most kind of fire to it was definitely Clare against Wexford, and it definitely lived up to the bill. This is 1-0 to me on the predictions. You predicted Clare to win this game.
Yeah. If they
I
hadn't
predicted
capitulated
Wexford.
in the end.
Yeah, you were very nearly right.
Yeah.
I think it's a good shout for a game of the weekend. Obviously, the late comeback from Wexford. Yeah, brilliant game.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought that it looked over for a long part of it. And then you had Wexford with the 2 goals pretty much in 60 seconds. And then all from there, the Liam Curry red card, it just followed from there and all the momentum changed. And I thought as well, yeah, it was a fantastic end to a game. And probably, if you look at the 2 games that we've already talked about, you consider them to be the game of the weekend. But yeah, I thought this was definitely the most exciting one, certainly anyway.
Especially with the storyline of the 2 coaches, which is well documented. More or less same kind of issues for Clare. Not really sure where to put Aaron Shanahan. Not really sure where to put players like Aidan McCarthy. I think Brian Lohan is using this league to find his best team, and I wouldn't really look at this too much as where Clare are at. That being said, I still don't put them down as contenders for the Munster Championship or the All-Ireland.
Yeah.
I think they'll go out at some stage.
Yeah, I thought it was a funny game because I thought Clare were excellent up until the red card. And I thought, like you were saying with the positioning, it was very strange at the start. Aidan McCarthy was like, he lined up in the full forward line and looked completely kind of fish out of water there. And then once Tony Kelly limps off, he went out to that position and then he was absolutely excellent from there. And I thought he was probably one of the best players on the pitch. And then that allowed Shanahan to go back into full forward, and he caught an awful lot of ball in there and was very, very effective in that position. So it's just a matter, Clare need to get the players into their best positions and they need to stick with it there. I thought Colin was a little bit better in centre half back this week. I thought he looked a bit more solid there. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know, but they need to try and get Shanahan in full forward and then Aidan McCarthy kind of roaming around in that free role. It's just a problem of trying to balance him and Tony Kelly and not them getting into the way of each other.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I do think that Clare's they're not too sure about, what is their way of playing, who plays where. As you were saying, like Aidan McCarthy up in the forwards, then Shanahan, when he was finally trusted with playing for forward, he kind of grew into that position. I do think whatever Brian Lohan goes with, stick with it. Pick your team and back it, particularly in the league. If you want to play John Conlon centre half back, as much as I've stated that I disagree with it, stick with it. Because, you can't be chopping and changing everyone around and expect them to get into a rhythm. As you've said, I think on paper, Clare have better players than Wexford. That's just my opinion. But Wexford, as you've said, their team picks themselves. They know what they're about. They know what their team is. McDonald is at full forward. Dermot O'Keefe and Kevin Foley are going to be in midfield. Matt Johannan is going to be at centre half back most of the time. Liam Ryan's going to be a full back. Clare, you never know what the team is going to be, really.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because if they're going to do the Conlon thing at centre half back, you can't mess with centre half back. You want your centre half back to be the player that's there every single week. You need to have a strong spine to that team. And if they're going to go with Conlon and throughout the whole league, then I think they have to stick him there for a championship. And it's not something like Cork have had this problem before, that they play Tim O'Mahony centre half back, and then when it comes to throughout the whole league, and then as soon as it comes to championship, they move him back out and they move him into the wing forward or out to wing back or something like that. So I think if Clare decide that this is what they want to do and that Conlon's the answer there, they need to just back him and keep him in that position.
That's true, particularly about centre half back, because every All-Ireland winning team that I've seen has had a centre half back. Like even last year with Limerick, Declan Hannon is their centre half back. He is their number 6. He's not playing anywhere else. And they know this. He knows his role. And everyone around him knows Declan Hannon's role. So if John Conlon's going to be the leader at number 6, they need to build the defence around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on another point at the weekend as well, I know Wexford, they got the win in the end, but for large parts of it, they had serious struggles, particularly with the frees again. And this is a long running incident that they just can't find a consistent free taker. Lee Chin missed 6, I think, in total it was. And even Rory O'Connor went on a few and was a bit better, but he wasn't exactly like spotless as well on them. So it's just, this is a continuous problem for Wexford. And if they want to be a serious contender, they're going to have to sort this out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Promising signs for Wexford though, all the same. Back-to-back wins.
Yeah. And a lot of new players through as well,
yeah.
particularly in the half back line.
So I think Davey will be as happy as he can be. That's part 1 done of the hurling show on the Play On podcast. We'll come back with part 2. We'll talk about Kilkenny versus Antrim, Laois versus Dublin, Waterford versus Westmeath. Then we'll quickly run through the results of Division 2A and then give you a preview of next weekend's fixtures.
Pan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Play On podcast hurling edition. This is part 2. We'll be looking at Kilkenny versus Antrim, Laois versus Dublin, Waterford versus Westmeath, then giving you the results of Division 2A and then having a look ahead to next weekend's fixtures. So first, Kilkenny versus Antrim. Kilkenny 1 goal and 28 points. Antrim 3 goals and 15 points. Antrim suffered their first defeat of the season, but I wouldn't be too worried about it. I thought they competed very well. Of course, they had that spell in the second half where they closed the gap. McNaughton looked very impressive. Neil McManus looked very impressive again. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I thought very, very exciting second half. There was that spell where the Conor Clark goal went in, and then after that, Antrim rattled into 2 goals in quick succession. Yeah, and so I think they've definitely been the probably the most positive kind of sign from the National League so far in the hurling. Kind of they obviously the results up against Clare was fantastic, and then they gave Kilkenny an awful scare for a long part of this game. I know Kilkenny answered every kind of setback they got very, very well. Like you look at when the third goal went in for Antrim, Kilkenny just immediately went up the other end, knocked over a few scores, particularly their forwards looked very, very strong. But yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable game, and it's great to see Antrim kind of competing with the big teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For Kilkenny, I thought it's still a good performance from them. They hit 128, like they look very sharp. One thing that I was very excited about, particularly in the Dublin game when his name was on the team sheet, was the return of Adrian Mullen. I thought 2019, this guy looked incredible. And it was good to see him back in. I know he had a horrific injury. Good to have him back. And there's a good bit of competition now building up in that Kilkenny forward line. You've got Owen Cody there, you've got Bergen there. You're not even mentioning Walter Walsh. And obviously Colin Fennelly and Jarrell would have taken their leave of absence from the Kilkenny panel. But I don't think they're going to miss them too much, especially if Adrian Mullen fires on all cylinders. This guy is an incredible hurler. Yeah,
absolutely. I think in the Dublin game, he was taken off at half time, but he was kind of back to his best of the weekend, 3 points. And then, you look, James Bergen coming in after kind of a great Fitzgibbon campaign, hit 4 points from play. So, I think there's plenty there. You look at Owen Cody, Alan Murphy again, 13 points for him. So this was a Kilkenny team that rested a fair few. No TJ Reeves that had dropped out of the team. And then there was debuts for David Blanchfield, all these players kind of coming through. And they still managed to rack up 128 against a pretty tidy Antrim side. So I think Cody would be absolutely delighted with how this has gone. I think it's the perfect start for the league for them.
Yeah, and I don't think Antrim would be too upset by the result either. I think they would have gone up wanting to win. Darren Gleeson is a winner through and through. To be honest, I think obviously we'll talk about it later on, but Dublin against Antrim at Parnell Park is definitely a very interesting game to look at and very hard to call. Speaking of Dublin, they bounced back as we predicted that they would. 30 points to 119. They won over Laois. Donald Burke deserves a shout out here. 18 points from the Nafina man. Good response from Dublin, but I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'd completely agree with that. It was, yeah, like Donald Burke, it was an awful lot of frees again. I suppose 14 out of the 18 he hit were from frees. Like, it was incredible scoring from him. But I don't think Laois, kind of, you can read too much into where Laois are at the moment. Kind of, it was a result you'd expect from Dublin. I know 30 points is a good tally to put up, but the real question is if they can maintain that scoring level against the traditional big powers, I suppose, in Leinster.
Yeah, and no, yeah, I would have. We said last week that we expected Dublin to come out and put Laois away if they were serious about, winning something this year. They have done that. They put Laois away. They didn't put them away as convincing as Wexford did, though. But
yeah, and I thought, like, the rest, it was very reliant on Donald Burke. I know from the other starting forwards like Eamon Dillon and Keane Boland scored, but none of the half forward line scoring. And it was just, there was a real shortage of other players stepping up other than Donald Burke there as well. So, like, I wouldn't be too optimistic following that result. I think it was good to get a win and good to kind of bounce back, but it wouldn't be anything that would set the world alight, I suppose.
Yeah. But that being said, Dublin can only beat what was put in front of them, and they did that, and they bounced back. Moving on, Waterford got a 3-point win over Westmeath. Not as comfortable as many, including myself, would have predicted. Westmeath looked very good. Players like Angus Clark, Killian Doyle were superb. Again, same problem that was in the Limerick versus Galway match. Huge free count seemed to spoil the game a little bit.
Yeah, there was well over 40 frees in this game. Incredibly stop-start. And I think that was the kind of consensus everywhere, was that everyone that watched this game was just completely frustrated by it, and that it did spoil the spectacle. I think it's demonstrated by, like, if you look at the scorers in the game, like Patrick Curran at 11 frees, and then you look at, Westmeath hit 11 frees as well. Like, it was just incredibly stop-start and reliant on kind of scores from place balls and stuff. So this is just the frustration that a lot of hurling people kind of have at the moment, is that these games are being refed too strictly, and it's become a way to kind of stop-start, I suppose. But, like, talking about the game itself, I think Liam Calby he'll be happy enough there with the win. You look at the team that they put out, and it's completely changed from the game the week before. I think it was 14 changes that he made. So to get any sort of win is a positive for Waterford with a pretty makeshift team that they put out. Like, they got a few of their key players back, like Angus Clark coming back in, and that they were able to welcome a few of these players kind of back in. Definitely helped. But yeah, that was a Waterford team that had made 14 changes. So I know they can only compete with what they're playing against, but it is kind of worrying for them going forward that teams can make that many changes and still comprehensively beat them.
Yeah, so there's no doubt about that. Good bounce back win for Waterford. Sets them up nicely, of course, for the showdown with the All-Ireland champions at Walsh Park. To give you a quick run through of the Division 2A results, the one that jumps out awfully, huge surprise. Beaten Kerry out the gate, 2 goals and 28 points to 13 points. Michael Fennelly, of course, in charge of Offaly. Great win for them. Yeah,
huge result for them. That was a real signal of intent. I think Liam Langton was probably the standout. Yeah, and it's a great result for them, and they really, really need to get back up to a kind of the Division 1 and back up competing there. And these kind of results kind of signify that intent. So yeah, it's good to see from an Offaly perspective, to see them getting back to where they should be, kind of.
Yeah, it is where they belong. Like, we grew up, well, like, you look at the 90s and the 2000s, Offaly did have very good hurling teams. And
Yeah, and
I'd love
they
to see them
shouldn't be
back.
down in the lower divisions with their history.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. They've won an All Ireland more recently than Wexford have.
And Dublin.
And Dublin, yeah. So it would be great to see them back. And they've won it more recently than Waterford have.
Yeah, sure.
It'd be great to see them back. In other results, Down had a 2-point win over Carlow, 3 goals and 20 points to 3 goals and 18. And Meath beat Wicklow by 20 points to 11. So now we will move into the fixtures for next weekend. Some mouth-watering clashes here, to be honest. On Saturday, Tipperary played Galway in Semple Stadium in Group A. Who do you think is going to win this one?
Yeah, I think another kind of interesting game. I think you look kind of Tip so far, 2 draws. They've kind of been keeping teams tight. That like teams just struggle to beat Tip kind of resoundingly. But at the same time, I do think Galway just look on a different level to everybody else in the league at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to go with Galway, but not by too much though.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Galway as well. I think Tipperary have been in a little bit rusty. Of course, the game against Limerick, a lot of frees in it, a lot like not a great spectacle. I think they'll give away a fair few frees. I think Evan Nyland is not missing anything really. I think Galway are going to get the job done.
Yep, good stuff. Yeah.
Next game up, Dublin against Antrim in Parnell Park. This one I think is a lot tighter to call than I would have said at the start of last season.
Yeah, I do think it is very difficult to call this one. I think everyone's kind of pleasantly surprised with how well Antrim have been playing. Then at the same time, though, I think Dublin will edge it in Parnell Park. I think the home advantage will be important for them. It's a long old journey down for Antrim. And yeah, I'm going to go with Dublin by 2 or 3 points to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Dublin will beat Antrim. I think I'm a bit hesitant about it because of how well Antrim played against Kilkenny, how well Antrim played against Clare, and the fact that obviously they are Joe McDonagh Cup champions. And if you were to ask me this time last year if Dublin will beat Antrim, there wouldn't be a doubt in my mind that Dublin are going to win. I'm a little bit doubtful here. I think Antrim, they won't be bothered at all by the Kilkenny defeat. Dublin didn't give Kilkenny as good a game as Antrim did, I think. But I'm going to go for Dublin I'm going to go for a few points, about 5 points win for Dublin. And a new rivalry, if you like, for the next game, or a rekindled rivalry, Kilkenny versus Wexford in Nolan Park.
Yeah, another kind of interesting game. Cody against Davy. I actually think this one will be comfortable for Kilkenny. I don't know. I wasn't overly impressed with Wexford the weekend. I know that they had a fantastic last 10 minutes after, but that was following the red card. And I just kind of like where Kilkenny are at the moment. I think that Kilkenny are going to continue their unbeaten run and then Wexford's. And yeah, I think it'll be between 5 to 10 points.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it will be anywhere near 10 points, but I think Kilkenny will win by about 4 or 5. I think even though I've been impressed by Wexford's results, the performance for the majority of the game against Laois wasn't good. Then they, turned it on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Whereas same against Clare, they turned it on when they needed to. But Clare kept them in the game. Laois kept them in the game. And Kilkenny won't keep them in the game. Yeah, if they're caught napping against Kilkenny, Kilkenny will put them away. I'm going to go with Kilkenny to win this one, especially in Nolan Park. Next one, Cork against Westmeath. Porky Creeve. This could be a tough day for Westmeath. I think Cork are going to win this one.
Yeah, I think it will come down to kind of the strength of the team that Cork puts out as well. I think if Cork kind of keep a bit of continuity and have like a similar lineup to what it's been recently, it could be a very, very difficult day. I think Westmeath will be hoping that Cork kind of experiment a little bit and try out a like a few fellas in kind of different places and a few new fellas in the team. And
Yeah,
yeah, I suppose it's all just about the performance for Westmeath and just kind of building experience playing against the top teams, I suppose, and just try to keep it as competitive as they possibly can.
yeah, I agree. I think that this would be a good game for Cork to bring Alan Callaghan back into full match fitness and um, to really cement Mark Coleman as him dropping deep like he was, particularly against Waterford in that first game.
Yeah, there was
Um,
a few young players as well came off the bench there. The last day, you look at Connor Cahalan coming on, hitting 2 points, and you can look at Dara Connery, who I thought was absolutely excellent when he came on as well. Again, last weekend, you've got Alan Connolly. Like these fellas, try and get these guys a start as well too. And yeah, I think this is the perfect situation for these guys to continue getting more experience for Cork. And I think
yeah,
that's what they're going to do.
I think if I was Cork as well, I think I would give Conor Lahan a game in this game. He's a mercurial talent.
Well, yeah,
Um,
Lahan's not on the panel anymore nowadays. He announced that at the start of the year, so
but
it's
I
they're
still I know that,
yeah,
but I would still offer him.
yeah,
I think he's a quality player. I think they could do with him, and I think
yeah.
a nice little project building there, and I think it could be almost like an Eamon McGee situation with Donegal when Jim McGuinness took over. That a player leaves, then a new manager comes in. You see the work that's being done, and then he gets coaxed back in. And I think if Cork can get Conor Lahan, I think it's a no-brainer. I think he's a quality hurler.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that like they this year seems to be that Kingston has looked for a definite shift kind of in I don't know, it's nearly like extreme work rate in the forwards kind of, and that the type of players that are going to put extreme pressure on the defenders working the ball out. And I just think the players that he's going to favour are the fellas that have been starting throughout this league, kind of, which is definitely showing a different side of Cork to say last year.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I still think off the bench, even for the last 10, 15 minutes, if it's available to Cork, I don't see why they wouldn't take it. Um, but yeah, no, I think we both agree that Cork are going to win this one. Leash against Clare in O'Moore Park.
Yep, I think this Clare finally get their win now in the league. They're very unlucky probably against Wexford. Thought the performance was an awful lot better. So yeah, I think they'll be without Liam Curry, who got the straight red anyway. For it was a pretty awful strike, but yeah, I think Clare bounced back.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Leash are in a rot right now, and I think Clare are going to beat them as well. I don't think Clare will beat them by as much. I think it will be very similar to the Dublin game. Um, Clare will be a bit nervous, having lost back-to-back games, but I think they'll get the job done. Be interesting to see just how fit Tony Kelly is. Obviously, after
Yeah,
the
it was.
the Wexford game.
Yeah, it looked to be a dead leg, and I know Liam Ryan was kind of ruled out of the Clare game last week with the dead leg, so it might be. I'd say it'll be a game too. It might be a game too soon for Tony Kelly coming back, and we'll probably see the Laois game as an opportunity to get him well rested, kind of for future games coming up.
Yeah, well, if there's any sign that Tony Kelly could aggravate something and make it worse, this is not the game to risk that for.
Yep.
And I think they need to have some sort of experience of playing without him as well. Because if he
Yep.
gets
I
injured
think
in the
if they
championship, Clare are in big trouble.
Yeah, I think they'll look to play Aidan McCarthy in that role again. He looked really, really good there. So I think you'll see Aidan McCarthy playing that free role around the middle,
Yeah.
and he looks to be very effective at it.
Yeah, no, so we're agreed on
Everything,
pretty
pretty
everything
much.
so far. And
Yeah,
I think we're going to agree as well on Waterford versus Limerick. I think Limerick are going to win this game.
yeah. I think it's very hard to see anything other than that. I don't think Waterford are fully firing at all yet this year. I think they look kind of a shadow of themselves from last year. So yeah, I think the fixtures this week kind of I think they're all pretty straightforward. I know that there can be shocks, but this week's fixtures, I think they look fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I think Limerick as well will be, adamant to make a statement after losing their unbeaten streak. I think they're going to come back and
Yeah.
I think they'll
Yeah,
get the
I think
job
you'll
done.
see Aaron Galan back starting. He came off the bench and looked very, very sharp as well. So I think you'll see Galan back in there, and I think Limerick could have a handy enough, like it could be a big enough score.
Yeah, no. So that's our predictions for next weekend's games done, as well as the review of all the hurling matches that took place last weekend. Luke, thanks a million for all your help today.
Yeah, no worries. Good talk to you.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And cheers.